didn't want to pay for the book. She 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 didn't want to pay for the book. The basic unit of intonation I haven't defined for you, haven't given it a proper name yet. Yesterday I kept talking about complete intonation patterns. There are lots of different names that people give for units of intonation. The name that gets used in this department mostly is the name word group. We'll first start thinking about the internal structure of the word group, what you can find inside word groups. And then we will start worrying about where the boundaries of word groups can come, what sort of choices we can make as to where to put word group boundaries. Now we saw yesterday, or I told you yesterday, that a complete intonation pattern, a word group, must have at least one accented syllable in it. There must be one sentence stressed syllable which has got a pitch feature attached to it which makes it accented. That obligatory part of the word group is called the nucleus. So the first thing that we can say about the word group is that each word group must have a nucleus. And moreover, each word group has one nucleus, and that one nucleus is the last accented syllable. So we've got a nucleus, and we can have word groups that consist just of a nucleus and nothing else. For example, no is a word group which consists of just one syllable, which is a nucleus and has got nothing else before it or after it. However, we can find word groups where there are syllables following the nucleus. Now these syllables can be stressed or unstressed, but they cannot be accented because the definition of the nucleus is that it is the last accented syllable in the word group. These syllables which follow the nucleus, if they're there, are called the tail. And we'll put the optional, the non-obligatory components of the word group in brackets. Okay? Now the tail syllables can be stressed or unstressed, but they can't be accented. If there is more than one accented syllable in a word group, then the final one, of course, is the nucleus, and the first one has got a special name too. It's called the onset. Now, of course, not all word groups have an onset because not all word groups have more than one accented syllable. But if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 17 accented syllables in your word group, then the first one is called the onset, the last one is called the nucleus. The bit from the onset up until the nucleus, but not including the nucleus, so finishing at the syllable before the nucleus, is another component of the word group called the head. You don't have to have a head, it's not obligatory, so we'll put it in brackets. You may find that there are syllables in front of the nucleus, but none of them are accented. All of the syllables in front of the nucleus may be stressed or unstressed, but they're not accented. So if we have some unaccented syllables at the beginning of a word group, those are called the prehead. Okay. Again, you don't have to have a prehead in the word group. So we'll put that in brackets. So that is a structure, sort of schematic structure of a word group in terms of the intonation components that can occur in it. Let me say a little bit more about these two components before I give you some examples. Prehead is a very silly term, I think, because it looks as though it should mean something that comes before the head. But you can have a prehead without having a head, right? I defined prehead very carefully for you. I said any unaccented syllables at the beginning of a word group, any unaccented syllables before the first accented syllable. Now, of course, the first accented syllable could be the nucleus, all right? So if there is no head, you can still have some unaccented syllables before the nucleus, and that will still be a prehead. So you can have prehead head, or prehead nucleus, or head nucleus, or if you want prehead head. So there are no restrictions on what can occur with what at all. You can have a prehead without a head, you can have a head without a prehead, you can have both, or you can have neither. Let's have a look at some examples. The sentence is, she didn't want to pay for it. Pay for the book, I'm sorry. She didn't want to pay for the book. She didn't want to pay for the book. So I've got an interlinear graph representation of the intonation of this utterance. You can see that I've chosen to make did sentence stressed, want sentence stressed, pay sentence stressed, and book sentence stressed. However, the first accented syllable that I have is want. Why is it accented? 1, it's sentence stressed. 2, there's a change in pitch between what goes before it and it itself. It starts a new trend in the pitch contour, therefore it's accented. Therefore, want in this utterance is the onset. Pay is the nucleus, that's the last accented syllable. So what have I got here? I've got she didn't. Here is the prehead. Want to is the head. Pay is the nucleus. And for the book is the tail. Okay, so I'll say that sentence for you as it's indicated there. She didn't want to pay for the book. 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 Okay, now if we have a look at another version of the same sentence where the intonation and things are different. She didn't want to pay for the book. She didn't want to pay for the book. Here, what I've got, the same sentence, I think I've got the same stress pattern as well. So did, want, pay and book are all sentence stress syllables, and a prehead is the same as before. Okay. However, the last accented syllable this time is book. That's the nucleus. So everything between want up until the is the head this time. And just to show you that you can have more than 2 accents in a word group, I've made pay accented as well by making the pitch contour step down there. So I've got 3 accented syllables: want, the onset, book, the nucleus, and pay. It hasn't got a special name, it's just an accent in the head. So prehead is she didn't. Want to pay for the is the head this time, and book is the nucleus. I'll say that sentence for you. The way I've got it represented there is she didn't want to pay for the book. She didn't want to pay for the book. She didn't want to pay for the book. Okay, we'll have a look at a couple more examples quickly. She didn't want to pay for the book. She didn't want to pay for the book. I've only got 1 accented syllable this time, and that is the syllable want. So I haven't got an onset. If I haven't got an onset, I can't have a head. So she didn't have a prehead. Want is the nucleus, and to pay for the book is the tail. So that would sound like this. She didn't want to pay for the book. 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 And this is a slightly more complicated one. She didn't want to pay for the book. She didn't want to pay for the book. I've got a number of accented syllables here. She is accented. It starts this descending trend in the pitch contour. What is accented because it doesn't do the same as all the syllables coming before it. It goes up and then starts coming down again. Pay is accented because it does the same thing. It jumps up and then starts coming down again. And book is the nucleus. So I've got 4 accented syllables. There are no syllables in front of the first accented syllable, so I don't have a prehead. She didn't want to pay for the is head, and book is the nucleus. And you'll notice that the pitch contour on the nucleus is different from all the others. It goes down and then comes up again. That would sound like this. She didn't want to pay for the book. 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 So, head and nucleus. So those constituents of the intonation pattern, it's quite important you understand what they are, because in the rest of the course there will be lots of references to things like prehead, head, nucleus, tail. So that's the internal structure of intonation pattern, word group.